Welcome back to this week's edition of Extra Points. We're joined this week by Larry the Cotman Cotlar, local radio personality. You've been around the business for a long time, and the stories are great. And during the break, we talked about how we can stump you. And so let me throw this. You know, you're renowned for your Rolodex and your ability to get people to come on the air with you and do the interviews. And we're talking about Charlie Finley and some other things. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's eluded you, anybody that you've really wanted to have on over the years, and whether it's just not making connections or they're doing the Heisman or whatever, anybody that's eluded you over the years?
You know who would have liked to have spoken with? George Steinbrenner.
Oh.
I would have liked to speak with him, and I called the
Great
Yankees
interview.
a couple of times, and it just didn't work out. And that's a guy I would have liked to have really
Be fascinating.
picked his brain a little bit, find out what's going on there, because I think he's one of, you know what, a lot of people criticize him as an owner. I don't, because I think he's one of the best owners. I mean, his sole goal was to win.
Yeah. The best team possible.
Right,
Yeah.
That's what he did, and whether people liked him or not for doing it the way he did it for the fans. I mean, He did it for his own fans. He felt, hey, my team is the most important, and I want to win. And I would just love to have spoken with him.
He came to Des Moines a lot when he was with the Olympic Committee, U.S. Olympic Committee, and Bob Helmick was the guy. And so he'd come to all the meetings here. And so I talked to him a couple times, and he was gracious, and he was fascinating, and he was really a good interview, and he was candid. It was very good.
And other guys like Charles Barkley. You know, I've never spoken with Charles, and I think that would be fascinating.
Yep, I have a lot of respect for what Charles has grown into. I mean, we could all talk about
sure.
Athletes and role models and all that stuff, but I love him as a broadcaster, and I'm fascinated by just kind of what makes him tick and kind of how his brain works. He's fascinating. Larry, I also want to get into a little bit. You spent a lot of time with Jim Zabel, and interested to get your take with Jim's passing this last year, and kind of. You're in a unique position to talk about what Jim may or may not have meant to sports in this state, certainly, and throughout the Midwest.
Well, I always thought he was the most known person in the state of Iowa. Everybody knew Jim Zabel when he was broadcasting and doing Hawkeye games. I don't know if everybody liked Jim Zabel, but everybody knew Jim Zabel. I mean, one thing he taught me, he was one of my mentors. One of the things he taught me was the ability to, as we used to call it, fly by the seat of your pants.
Never let the facts get in the way of a good broadcast.
Well, that too. That was an Ed Podolak line one time. That and the 22 games that Iowa played every year. The 11 games that really played and the 11 games that Jim saw and broadcast. But no, Jim taught me to fly by the seat of my pants, because there are times when you're doing a talk show, you call to try to get a guest on the air, and something happens and they're not there, it goes to voicemail, and you can't exactly put on an album. I mean, you can't put on a CD and, guys, we'll be back after we play Led Zeppelin 4. Not going to happen.
Although Led Zeppelin 4, not a bad choice.
Not a bad choice, but you've got to go on, and you've got to be able to, first of all, preparation has a lot to do with that. And I used to tell young people all the time when they'd come in and talk about talk shows that you got to be prepared.
Preparation, that's what we need.
Now we know. A year into this,
that.
we figured out what we're missing.
Just shifting gears a little bit, you do a lot of things, but I think, and a lot of people know you as the Drake play-by-play basketball person. And when I talk to guys in broadcast who do play-by-play, that's 9 out of 10 times that's their favorite gig. And I don't know how you feel about that, but tell me a little bit about that.
It is. It is. I love doing Drake play-by-play. My father went to Drake. My stepfather. That's the reason I moved to Des Moines. He did play-by-play, or he didn't do play-by-play, but he went to school back in the 30s. In fact, he went to school with Paul Morrison.
Wow.
Yeah, at that time. He's no longer around, my dad. But so Drake, to me, is the ultimate job, and I've told him this because my father went to school there. I love doing play-by-play because you feel like part of a family, and you know this as well as anybody.
You're part of the team.
You are. You're part of the team.
The broadcast team is absolutely part of the team.
Absolutely. You know, when I got to work with a great man like Dolph Pulliam, we were acquaintances and knew of each other and would speak on occasion, but we got to be very close friends. And I love working with Dolph. And like I said, you get to be part of a team. You know what makes them tick. And when they win, you exult. When they lose, your heart breaks just a little bit. So that's what I really enjoy about doing play-by-play. And I did some with the Barnstormers, and same thing. I mean, you get to know these guys, and that to me is fun.
That's why I think it's a little, announcers get criticized for being homers. But when
How can you not be?
But and that's true. You are part of the team.
Right.
And I think most fans want you to be for their team.
Sure they do.
Some people you don't want to get crazy about it because you have other
especially
people.
If you're the radio guy, you've got to be part of the team.
You have to be. That's what they want to hear. You know, people loved Jim Zabel over the years because he was the voice of the Hawkeyes. Look, they had some horrible teams when he was there. They had 20 years of non-winning seasons, but they loved listening to Jim. And Jim, you know, he lived and breathed Iowa. You know, just like Pete Taylor, you know, when he was at Iowa State. I mean, same thing, and all these guys now. But you're exactly right, Mark. I mean, people, when they tune in broadcast, they don't want to hear, I won't say it non-objective, but they don't want to hear an impartial broadcast. They want to hear it like they feel it. You know, look, this is my team.
Yep, they want to feel the emotion that they're, yeah, absolutely.
Right, the time that Dolph and I were on the road at Bradley. This is during the 07-08 season, the 28-5 year, late in the game. Emanek, in fact, we've recreated this 3 times, by the way, during his, he was the best man at my wedding. We recreated it there, of all things. But Adam Emenecker's driving down the lane, misses a shot, tipped out by Bucky Cox. Emenecker tries again. Oh, misses, tipped out again. Emenecker hits it. And we're screaming together. We are screaming together. Sandy Hatfield Club told me afterwards, she said, I didn't know if you guys had won or not. I said, did you think we would be screaming if we lost? But we got played back on Fox that night. And because they were covering the Bulldogs at that point. And
that emotion, yeah.
We were known as the 2 guys talking together at the same time network. But you loved it. I mean, you just screamed because, and conversely, when they lose, Ty Rogers, NCAA tournament, Western Kentucky, breaks your heart. Absolutely breaks your heart.
Yeah, we had John Walters on talking about the same thing. If I tune into a Cyclone broadcast midway, if I'm driving around, I can tell just by the tone in John's voice whether they're up or down.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
no
I can
doubt.
tell the way the game's going in the first 5 seconds of the broadcast.
You know, if you don't like a certain team, listening to the announcers be really down is really fun. I mean, you know, it's really entertaining.
Thanks for going there, Mark.
I know.
I like to hear other play-by-play guys. There was a guy named
Yeah.
John Ward who did Tennessee football for many, many years, and he had one signature line. Whenever a volunteer was going to score a touchdown, and we used to do this when I was working national radio, we'd play some of the highlights, and it was always, he's at the 20, he's at the 10, he's at the 5, give him 6, Tennessee touchdown. I mean, I love those kind of signature phrases. I love those. You know, and I was there when Jim created I love it, I love it, I love it for an Iowa-Indiana game. Back in 1985,
that became trademark.
86, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to be back with more Larry Cotlar, and we'll take maybe a little bit of a different slant on memory lane right after this.